Thank you, Mr. Speaker, members. Y'all know, members, every year before Memorial Day, we talk about Memorial Day here. Y'all remember 2 years ago, we read off all of the names of Louisiana's sons who died on D-Day. And last year, we read off a list of names of World War II Medal of Honor winners. They were very touching moments. This year, we're going to kind of go on a bit of a macro level, tied strictly to Louisiana. Something amazing happened in this state, and it stays with us. Many of our sons have died and daughters have died through the years, many thousands. We all know people who've lost family members. But I became aware in 1969 of an event that took place in Vietnam. Most of you weren't born in Vietnam. I remember those days. They were days of turmoil, not different from right now. They were days of turmoil. By 1969, over 30,000 Americans had lost their lives. There was turmoil over the draft. There was turmoil over the utility of the war. But men were over there fighting and dying all the time. And in 1969, a soldier who was stationed at Fort Polk, Sergeant First Class James Moore, was killed in a firefight. He was training some of our allies from South Vietnam, and he was in a small unit that was training the Vietnamese with some Marines. Sergeant First Class Moore was a native of Latrobe, Pennsylvania. He just happened to be living in my hometown of Leesville. His wife Shirley, his children Jeffrey, Melissa, and Cindy were at home. Sergeant Moore was killed in this firefight, and everyone else got out of the fight. And they got back to their base camp, and they looked around and no one saw Sergeant Moore. They didn't know what to do, and it is not an American thing to leave a man behind. And so 4 Marines said, we're going back. And apparently an Army officer said, no, we're not. And they said, watch us. And these 4 Marines saddled up, and they fought their way back into this village that had been taken over by the Viet Cong. They literally fought their way back into this village. One of the Marines who brought that man back is with us today. He's sitting over here, Mr. Lane Boudreaux. I found out about this in January. Mr. Fletcher from Leesville came to my house and he said, Chuck, you need to know something. He said, my girlfriend, Cindy Moore, who's sitting over there, I wish y'all would both stand. That was his daughter. This is Sergeant First Class Moore's daughter. If at the time Lance Corporal Boudreaux and the other 3 Marines had not gone back in and put their own selves at risk, she wouldn't know where her dad is. They brought her dad home from Vietnam. He is buried at Gettysburg. Miss Moore and her family lived most of their life in Leesville, and that's where she is to this day. Memorial Day means a lot of things. It means barbecues and time with family. But what it really means to us as a nation is we give thanks to the men and women who have kept us free for 250 years, in good and bad times, in hard times and in easy times. But that's what Memorial Day is. And on this day, we celebrate the courage of Sergeant First Class Moore, because when he got done with this, after his death, the Army gave him a high decoration. They gave him a silver star. Beautiful words are written on it, and they're archived. The Marines are Marines. They kind of patted their guys on the back and said, good job. And the Marines were not as appropriately decorated as they should be. And so I have put our congressional delegation on notice to this, and we'll be talking about that in future years, future days. These men need to be decorated for what they did. They do. This man here needs to be decorated. So what we will do as the Louisiana House of Representatives is we have a proclamation from Speaker de Villiers. And these 3 Marines behind me are going to read it. Y'all know Sheriff Wiley, Representative Knox, Representative Gallet are Marines. And there is a special bond that Marines have with each other that's like nothing I've ever seen in my life. And so I think everyone is standing, so I'm going to ask everyone to please stay standing as we read this proclamation.
A concurrent resolution to commend Lane Frenchie Boudreaux for his extraordinary heroism and self-sacrifice during the Vietnam War, and to honor his military service in the spirit of Memorial Day. Whereas on March 19, 1969, United States Army Sergeant First Class James H. Moore, who served as heavy weapons infantry advisor with Mobile Advisory Team 112, was killed in action near the district headquarters in Dien Ban District while engaged in combat against a well-fortified North Vietnamese Army force. Whereas, after learning that Sergeant Moore's body had been left behind, Marine Sergeant David Carpenter, Corporal Lane Frenchie Boudreaux, Corporal H.T. Berryhill, and Corporal James Pollock, and other members of Mobile Training Team 2 made the voluntary decision to re-enter the village while under heavy fire to recover their fallen comrade.
And whereas Corporal Boudreaux, who was described by his teammates as the strongest member of the unit, carried the body of the much larger Sergeant First Class Moore in a fireman's carry while under continuous enemy fire and refused to leave him behind. And whereas this extraordinary act of bravery and devotion to the sacred principle to the comrade in arms is never abandoned, reflects the highest tradition of the United States Marine Corps and the United States military, and is emblematic of the United States Marine Corps ethos. No one is left behind. And whereas Sergeant First Class Moore was posthumously awarded the Civil Star for his gallantry that day, the Marines involved, including Corporal Boudreaux, were recognized by their chain of command as having performed actions worthy of the highest decoration.
And whereas Memorial Day is a solemn time to remember the fallen, honor those who served, and recommit ourselves to the values of courage, sacrifice, and brotherhood that define our nation's defenders. And whereas Lane Boudreaux, a living hero of that day, and continues to embody those values more than 55 years later. Therefore, be it resolved that the legislature of Louisiana does hereby commend Lane Frenchie Boudreaux for his heroism, courage, and selfless sacrifice on March 19, 1969, in recovering the body of First Class James H. Moore under enemy fire, and does hereby express enduring appreciation for his dedicated service in defense of American liberties.
I asked Miss Moore this morning if she remembered her father's funeral. She was 11. She said she has some memories of it. But one thing that is done when a serviceman dies is that a flag is given to the widow. Her mother is long gone. Major retired Cruz will hand the flag to Miss Moore from us. It was flown over this Capitol. Mr. Speaker, I would ask, after he does this, that we have a moment of silence in commemoration for all of the Louisianians who have given us the freedoms we have. And
Members, let's bow our heads for a moment of silence.
And Mr. Fletcher, who told me the story, is over there, and so are Mr. Boudreaux's daughter and granddaughter. Thank you for your attention, members, and enjoy your Memorial Day weekend. Let's give a round of applause for this American hero. Speaker.